the child, which is the most ridiculous thing. That's not being a parent. Evie, what do you say?
I tend to agree with a lot of it. I agree with the fact that he was looking externally at everything around him as being the problem. He never once looked internally at himself. When you hear this manifesto, when you hear his YouTube videos, he talks about how everybody else is at fault, but never once does he look internally.
Well,
I do think that some of the onus should be put. Hang on.
Go ahead.
I do think some of the onus should be put a little bit on the parents because again, we don't know all of it, but they should have had a much more active role in his, in what was going on with him. The other thing that I noticed is, and again, to just be careful with this, but I want to make note that he grew up in this environment with Hollywood fame. His father was in an industry where all these external things, money, cars, women, everything made you popular, and that's what he needed. So I also tend to wonder what kind of values were instilled in him to think that these were the things he needed to have to fulfill himself.
A point well taken. And Wendy, the very nature of somebody insisting that it's the world that's the problem, and it is not themselves, is in its nature in what we call a personality disorder.
It is a personality disorder, but even within the frame of Asperger's syndrome, this lack of insight is very, very common. And this idea that, like, the bad mother, the environment is doing things to them.
Yeah.
But the key is early interventions. Yes, at the age of 22, there's not a whole lot the parents can do except take away the BMW. But with my daughter, for instance, we were up at UCLA by the age of 6 doing social skills training. So she uses different visual cues to tell when she learns how to read facial expressions. She learns how when she can move into a game to play. And she's done so well that she's totally mainstream.
Well, that's the important thing, is that they can be effectively treated. Sam.
And I want your take on several posts that we found. I have them right here about his frustration, of course, over women, but that had really disturbing overtones of racism. So, for example, on bodybuilding.com, he insulted an Indian guy with a hot blonde girl in his car and then also on a different forum, a phony pickup techniques forum, he wrote about seeing a black guy, quote, chilling with 4 hot white girls, and then he said that this made him rage-induced.
He was rage because not because of the racism. There's misogyny and racism throughout. That's the nature of hate.
Okay, so
hate has to go somewhere, and what he's ultimately angry with is that they're happy and in relationships. It's envy. Envy is the most destructive emotion a human can have because it goes to, I must aggress and destroy those that have, in its worst form. And that's what this kid had. And of course, the hatred then spews through misogyny and racism and classism. And it just goes every which way. It's all hate and envy. I did not get to the phone call of Lucky Radley, who was mentioned in the manifesto. I'm bringing it back. I got to take a break. We're also going to talk about how should mental issues be addressed by the police, by the doctors, by the families. We're going to get our panel together to discuss some of that and more.